I just want to welcome everybody onto this webinar. There's many hundreds of people from all around the world. So wherever you are, good evening or good afternoon, or even good morning, if you're closer to our timeline. It's 9 a.m., just after 9 a.m. on Tuesday morning here in Auckland. My name is Scott Mathieson. I'm the co-founder and co-owner of Working In. And we've been doing this for over 20 years, helping people move from around the world down to New Zealand. So we are immigration advisors and employment advisors at the same time. On this panel today, I have two very experienced people. First is Nassim, who's in our Auckland office with me. Nassim, can you just say a few words and introduce yourself, please?
Yeah, sure. Hi, everyone. My name's Nassim. I've been with Working In now for 10 years. There'll be a cake here in 2 days. That'll be my 10-year anniversary, helping people migrate down under with Working In. I'm originally grew up in Australia. So myself and along with the team here at Working In, we're 8 licensed immigration advisors and a big support staff. So we've been doing thousands of visas for many, many years. And we look forward to being able to help everyone who's listening out here today as well.
Cool, thanks Nassim. So Nassim is a licensed immigration advisor for New Zealand and also a registered MAR agent for Australia, which is handy. And over in the UK, we have Paul Goddard. Paul has worked for Working In for over a decade on and off, and has quite an interesting story. So Paul, would you like to introduce yourself, please?
Yeah, those of you who don't know, my name's Paul, and yeah, I used to live in New Zealand, lived there for 17 years until very recently. Currently back in the UK, just for some family reasons. We'll get back to New Zealand at some point. Wish I was there right now. Yeah, like most of you on here, just was looking for a better lifestyle or a different lifestyle around 20 years ago, and made the move. It was a bit different, like Scott said. We had the BBC jump in and film the whole thing, which was interesting and stressful all at the same time. I wouldn't advise it for anyone, but it was an experience, shall we say. And then I managed to write a book all about it and get that published as well, which was great. And then that led to lots of opportunities and moving into the immigration industry and working with Scott and Nassim and all the guys over there, which was amazing. And yeah, between us, I think we've helped thousands of people move, haven't we, Scott?
Yeah, literally.
Really the key message is we're here to share experiences, my experience of moving, Nassim's experience and Scott's experience of helping people, and hopefully we can help a lot of you on here, make this move a reality.
Cool, thanks Paul. Thank you very much. Yeah, look, and on that note, we understand that there's a lot of people on here that this might be the first time that they've considered moving to New Zealand, or it might be the first time they've even considered migrating. And then there'll be others who are well down the way, who've been considering this for a long time, who've done all the research, and are perhaps even in their last stages or even lodged some of their visa work. So it's very difficult in this environment to cover everybody's wishes. There are opportunities after the webinar to talk with us, to join our workshops, to learn more. But really for us, it's about making sure that what you get is bespoke specifically for you. Immigration is very challenging. They say it is one of the most stressful things that you can do in your life. And our role really here is to make that as easy as possible and just make that path that you take as smooth and as less stressful, because you've still got to do other things in your life whilst organising all this. So yeah, there will be workshops afterwards, and there will be an opportunity to consult with Nassim and understand whether you meet the criteria for New Zealand, because with COVID and with this particular government, there are a lot of changes going on with immigration policy. It's changing all the time. We've been doing this for over 20 years now, and we see policy constantly changing. It's like a living, breathing lung, and windows open for some people and closed for others all the time. So part of what we're here to do is to help you understand, are you eligible now? And what about the borders, and how do we get through the managed quarantine and such and so forth? So there's a bit of a process. So as for me, yeah, as I said before, my name's Scott. I founded this with my partner, Hayley Roberts, 20 years ago. We used to run large scale expos in the UK, South Africa, Canada, all around the world, bringing employers from all around the world to those destinations. But obviously expos are not the way to go anymore, but we have been doing this online style for over 5 years now. So COVID didn't catch us by surprise. It's just how we roll now. So I'm in our Auckland office, and the people that you can see behind me are immigration advisors, and in front of me here there's a whole lot of other people who work in the employment side. So just very quickly, a quick update. I think around immigration, we always say a successful immigration, a successful outcome is based on research, is based on whether you've actually met your expectations. So Immigration New Zealand did a study a while ago, and it's found out that 91% of people coming to New Zealand or migrating to New Zealand were highly satisfied or very satisfied. And that's a really good outcome, right? However, when you looked at that 9% of people who were just satisfied or even dissatisfied, and they drilled down on the reasons around that, it was evident that those people were not moving for the correct reason, or hadn't done their research properly, or perhaps mainly the expectations were not met. So I think it's we're looking at the situation around COVID and saying, hey, listen, COVID will go away. We're not saying to people migrate to New Zealand because we're COVID free at the moment. Immigration to New Zealand is a permanent thing. So you've got to look at the bigger picture and why you actually want to come to the other side of the world, especially for those people in Europe. I can give you a lot of good reasons, by the way, but I think it's a bigger picture. It's not just escaping from COVID. I think that's my point. So what is happening here? Well, as I said, it is a good situation. We don't have COVID in the community. We do have restrictions, like we need to wear masks on public transport and such and so forth. Anyone coming into the country has to spend 2 weeks in mandatory quarantine, which is normally in 4 or 5 star hotels, so it's not that bad. That this is impacting how we work with people from offshore in terms of visas and who can come and who's getting visas and who can't. So we'll cover that off. I guess the biggest thing around the visa, though, is that in New Zealand you need to get a job to get a visa, but when you're offshore it's very difficult to get a job, and it's even more difficult to get a job now because of COVID. This is called the catch-22. Paul, I know you've talked about this issue for some time. Maybe you're better place to explain that in a little bit more detail, please.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of you will have heard this phrase, the catch-22. It basically stems from, I can't get a visa because I haven't got a job offer, but I can't get a job offer because I haven't got a visa. One of the biggest mistakes that people make when they first look at trying to move is they read up on the immigration website and everything, and they quickly realize that they need a job offer to get a visa. And so they also then deduct that, I can't apply for a visa because I haven't got a job. So the only thing I can do is try and get a job. And that's a mistake, because what they do is they jump straight into firing off their CV to jobs that are advertised on the job sites in New Zealand. And that's not the best way to get a job offer. For a start, most of those adverts say you need a visa to apply. So, there's a barrier against you straight away. And also, those jobs are on the internet. That means everyone can see them and everyone can apply for them. So competition for those roles is high. The reality in New Zealand, and Scott and the team know this, and we all do because we live there, is most of the jobs that are actually available in New Zealand are not advertised on those job sites. They're word of mouth. It's a small country with a small population, and you need a different strategy. And we work very much on what we call employment support, which is putting together an employment strategy. And it's not the same strategy for everyone. If you're a health professional, we've got health recruitment team that can put you in. If you're in infrastructure and that, we've got recruitment teams that can do it. We've got recruiters that can work across lots of different sectors. But there will be some people on here who can't go through a recruitment agent, you know, and we need to look at a different strategy for you. And the strategy, and I'm not going to go into too much detail because this is obviously just a webinar to do it, but the strategy is all focused on removing the barrier for the employer, okay? Because if the employer has any doubt at all that you're not fully prepared and you're not ready to move, and they don't know if and when you can start work or when you can enter the country, how can they move forward with you? You know, and your CV, no matter how good it is, does not give the employer that information. So if all you're doing is firing off CVs, stop doing it. It's not going to work. Talk to us, and, you know, putting together a strategy to get around that catch-22 is absolutely essential, because without the job offer, the visa is irrelevant.
So true. Thanks, Paul. And talking about visas, Nassim, would you like to sort of give us a bit of an update about how the visa system works, and also what's happening now in regards to visas and particularly residency?
Yeah. So at the moment, as most people are aware, the New Zealand borders are closed. And what that means in a broad sense is that the way that you would apply for a visa is not the way that it normally was. So we talk about it being closed, but it's not closed, it's just limited. And that what that means is that the way you approach the whole visa process varies slightly. So currently, anyone that's onshore, that's already here in New Zealand, it's mostly business as usual. You can apply for all the same visas that you could previously. The only exception being is that due to the increase in demand and some of the resourcing issues that Immigration New Zealand had, they've put the skilled migrant residents on pause, but they're still processing all the other residents' applications. The other thing is that now, because of the strict quarantining and the process that we have with the borders, we have to apply for border exemptions for people to enter the country. So for those of you that are very, very clued up and interested in all the exciting updates from Immigration New Zealand, you'll know that every couple of weeks they announce a further change and they add a further category to those that are able to apply for an exception. So over the last year or so, within our team here, we had a look and we realized that we'd done over 100 border exemptions alone, and across a variety of different industries and different occupations. And earlier this morning, even Paul and I were chatting about how we've recently just had a border exemption approved for a role that you might not otherwise think would qualify. So I think the thing to take from all of this is that although it might seem like there's additional steps or processes involved, that it's still possible to get a visa with the right preparation.
Yeah, thanks, Nassim. I think that's right. Look, there's tremendous pressure on the government to allow more people in. I can see a few questions around jobs and such and so forth. Look, one of the ironic things about COVID is that we thought the economy here was going to be hit really badly. The reality is that it's really pumping along. The infrastructure and construction sector is going gangbusters. The demand for health workers is extreme. School starts today, finally, after a long break. I have a 12-year-old son, so it's great that he's going back to school. But, you know, on the radio yesterday, they were talking about how many of the public state schools are short of new teachers this year, because we haven't been able to get teachers through the border at a rate because, you know, there's bottlenecks at the border. So look, generally speaking, there's a demand for skilled workers in the IT sector, in the health sector, and then the construction sector, teaching, education. Obviously, the universities have been impacted. So when we say teaching, it's more at that school level. International education's on pause, so that has affected the numbers of tutors and lecturers. But look, I think the best thing to do is talk to us, and we can give you a very honest appraisal of what that market looks like, because we talk to people every day. So one thing I did want to ask Nassim or Paul is just around the EOI, the expression of interest. I mean, this comes up quite a bit. People sort of do their EOI. Can you explain that and the risks around that in particular?
Yeah, Nazim, do you want to go for that?
Yeah, sure. So currently, for anyone who doesn't know, the EOI, or expression of interest, is an intention to apply for residence. It's through the skilled migrant category. Now, the New Zealand government has decided that they will allow people to continually prepare and submit EOIs, and people can continue to pay the fee, but they've also announced that they're not doing any draws. So a lot of times I speak to people and I'm like, well, you can prepare one, but I wouldn't pay the money to submit it. I would just make sure that you've got it sitting there in the background on hold. The reason being is that once you submit it, it's only valid for 6 months. And until the government has announced that they will formally be drawing from the pool, if you're spending that money, it might be a waste. Unless you've got lots of money and you're like a bit of a flooder, then that's up to you. But my advice would be to prepare it, and we're doing that with clients now. Those that have, we've been able to get onshore over the last year. It's prepared, but it's not submitted. So you're able to do that. So maybe just hold on to the 530 for now.
Like, I think that's good advice. So what, generally speaking, we are doing is we're talking to people and we're engaging them and getting all their visa application ready, getting your police certificates and your medical certificates and your qualifications, because when the borders do open wider, then we are definitely expecting a huge volume of people to be applying for visas to New Zealand. So yeah, I think the general message from us is the sooner the better, because there's work to do. And also, Paul, I think some people are finding problems getting their qualifications from universities that are closed or anything like that. Do you know much about that? Or the same, yeah.
Oh, sorry. I was going to say, those that do need to, have formal qualifications, transcripts, all of these documents, and especially if you're in an occupation where you need registration, or if you need to have your qualification assessed in order to do the job here in New Zealand, we are finding that sometimes getting those documents is taking a little bit longer, with the universities either being on skeleton staff or working from home. And so a lot of that administrative stuff can take a little bit longer than people would like. I think that's just the reality of the world that we currently live in. So the sooner that you're able to start preparing and knowing what you need to get, give yourself as much of a wide berth as possible, because as Scott mentioned earlier on, the process can be stressful. These are stressful times, and you're also trying to keep things going while adding an additional task into it as well.
So Paul, for people who can't get in now, and I can see someone asked about logistics, and there is a demand for drivers at the moment, but the borders aren't open. So can you, and from your perspective, explain what people should do if they're not eligible right now for a border exemption?
Yeah, no, that's good timing actually, Scott, because Tony he's a client of ours. So he's not so much a driver, but he's definitely in that logistics management thing. And there are all sorts of skilled occupations where you go online and you can see them. You can see the vacancies. You can see people talking. You go on LinkedIn. You can see this stuff. But we don't have a definite timeline as to when immigration are going to basically put people on that list. At the moment we've got infrastructure people, we've got health professionals. Those lists are growing all the time. As Nassim says, border exemptions, whilst you've got to be all singing and all dancing and that to get one usually, but we have seen cases where employers have put a very, very strong argument forward as to why that person is needed, and the exemption's been issued. If you're willing to take that risk, we're happy to look at it and see if it is a risk worth taking, is the answer. But on the back of that, I think what's really important to say to people, and Tony knows this, as I say, because we talk all the time, what you also don't want to do is, you've got one chance to make a good first impression. It's a famous saying, you got one chance to make a good first impression. And so what you don't want to be doing, is like say, firing off CVs to an employer when that employer has got no intention of responding to you because they've got no idea if you can get into the country or not. You know, you don't want to waste that opportunity, because once your CV is plastered all over New Zealand, it's pretty hard to get that traction back again. And you certainly won't get a recruitment agent who's able to help you, because every employer's already got your CV. So it is about research at the moment. My advice to people is, on that job side of things, you know, there's a few things to do. First of all, you've got to find out if you're eligible for a visa based on your occupation. That's the first thing. And what we've got all our clients doing at the moment isn't, you know, firing off CVs for jobs, but researching that job market. That's why Tony knows there's a boom in logistics, because I've got him looking at it, you know, and that's what you can do. And you can make lists of potential employers, and you can gather that information, but don't reach out to them, because it's far better if we can actually put you forward to those employers as somebody who's skilled, eligible, and ready to go. Now, there's a little secret for everyone in what we do. That's far better than, here's my CV, have you got a job? And the employer knows nothing else about you. If you've got somebody on the ground in New Zealand who can put you forward for a job, then that can work. And again, just following on what Nassim was saying around timeframes and stuff, any health professionals on here, you know, don't hold off starting now, because, you know, you can get in as an border exemption, but also nursing registration, for example, takes quite a long time at the moment. There's an extra step with CGFNS. Then you go through the nursing council, MIQ, the quarantine things. You know, getting a slot in the hotels is a bit of a nightmare. You know, there's a lot of hurdles at the moment due to COVID, and so don't mess around. And to the people, you know, going, oh, you know, we've heard the borders won't be open for 12 months or whatever. You know, it's obvious there's going to be restrictions on the borders for the next 12 months or so anyway, but the borders have never actually been fully shut. You know, there are people who can get in, and that is growing. So it doesn't mean it's closed, but it, you know, and again, 12 months, it seems forever, but it flies by. You know, just think about the last 12 months. It absolutely flies by, and you've got to be patient and do the work and do the research, and we can take you through that.
Yeah, look, so just get some examples. Anybody in the health sector can get a border exemption. We've had managers of bands come through. We've had engineers from China. We've had translators. We've had the borders are open for vets, for commercial fishermen, for agricultural workers and who drive specific machinery. So it's quite random and a lot to do with the demand at that time. So yeah, I mean, I'm just basically highlighting to Paul that best thing to do is to get your eligibility assessed first, which is current, and from there we can sort of make some decisions. Nassim, do you want to sort of explain that eligibility assessment in a little bit more detail?
Yeah. So what we do is we obviously look at not just your CV, but you as a person and how you fit within the various immigration instructions, and also in particular with the current border exemption requirements. So I saw someone ask something about, like, you know, the age requirements in one of the questions. So for example, if you're looking at skilled migration, once you're 56 years of age, you can't qualify under that particular stream. There's no limit on ages for almost all temporary visas, so like, you know, work visas and the rest of it, and then family. So what we do is we look at you and we say, right, this is the skills that you've got, this is your experience, and these are the sorts of jobs that you're likely to be doing if you're here in New Zealand. So these are the policies, and these are the different things that you need to consider that you either need to do or you don't have to worry about, because it's like a free pass. So if you've got an, you know, automatically recognized qualification, you know, here's 50 just points to keep in your back pocket for when you apply for residence down the line, or you automatically qualify under the LTSSL, whatever it might be. So what we do is we make sure that you understand as well what your options are and what things you need to do to be able to move the process forward and move things along.
A lot of people say that you know, once they've got residency and then they can apply for citizenship and apply for a passport, they have to forego their existing passport. What's the situation with that, Nassim?
It depends on the country of citizenship that you have. So if you're a UK national, you can keep your citizenship and you can add New Zealand to that list. If you are a passport holder of a country like India, you're not allowed to have dual citizenship, so you'll have to give one up. Most people will give up their Indian passport to get their New Zealand citizenship, but then you just apply for your New Zealand permanent residence. So for each person, it's quite different. New Zealand doesn't stop you from having multiple citizenships, which is why it's a great passport to have. So for those, we've had one client where he had 4 passports. That was the most I've ever seen, I think. So he was collecting them like stickers.
And of course, there is an option for Australia later down the line.
Yep, that's correct. Once you're a New Zealand citizen, you're able to live and work in Australia. As long as you meet the character requirements, you can, and the borders are open. You can pop over to Australia and you'll be granted a subclass special category visa. So it's a 444 at the border, and that allows you to live and work in Australia as well, if you decide that you want to do that. But take it from an Aussie who's come this way, I think New Zealand's better.
I can't believe I just heard that. Yes, fantastic. And we're better at rugby as well.
Oh, yeah.
Thanks, Paul. So, look, we're up to half an hour now, so we don't want to take up everybody's time, especially in the evening. Just, Paul, briefly, do you want to give a summary of what everybody should be doing at this point? What's the next step?
Yeah, the next step. Look, we have never. I think you'll agree, Scott and Nassim. The period that we've had now over the last few months since the pandemic sort of hit. We were all like, well, what's this mean? You know, borders shutting down, everything. Does this mean that we're all going to be really quiet? And the exact opposite has happened. You know, I've never seen the interest in moving to New Zealand that I've seen in the last few months. I mean, my calendar for consultations has been booked up for months and in advance. And so that's great, you know, and I love talking to people. And that really is the next step, is I want to talk to you, you know, before you actually commit to anything, before we can see if we can help you. I need to get a good understanding of who we're talking to and what we're going to do. And what we were previously doing was one-to-one calls, and you know, there's an element of that we still can do, but we're going to do a bit smarter from now on and give you a bit more value, actually. So what we're going to do from here is we're going to look at all you guys who've registered and been on this webinar tonight and you know, taken that time out. It shows that you're serious and you're interested. And if you're not already a client of ours, what we're going to do is we're going to invite you to a workshop, an online workshop with me. We'll take around an hour or so, and during that workshop I'm going to run through all the information that you need to know. I'm going to tell you about eligibility. I'm going to tell you about, you know, do you meet the criteria, and clarify, can you move? We're going to talk about what it's like to live in New Zealand, because I lived there for 17 years. We're going to talk about the problems and the hurdles that you're going to have to overcome and face, and the solutions to get you over those hurdles. And we're going to talk about visas and timeframes and costs. And at the end of that call, you're going to be crystal clear. These are my options. These are the hurdles I need to overcome. These are the steps I need to overtake to overcome them. And that will give you enough information so that you can then make a decision and decide how you move forward, because this is key. You've got to do something to make this happen. You know, you can sit on as many webinars as you want, but until you commit, until you do something to make something happen, it's not going to happen. The world's against you in that way at the moment with COVID and everything else. There's this sort of, it's like everything stopped. But the reality is you don't have to stop. We're helping hundreds of people who aren't stopping. They're moving forward, albeit a bit slower than we'd like in some cases, but, you know, for other people, you know, they're moving and they're getting through all this. And if you were willing to commit and we're able to help you, then that's what we'll do. So what's going to happen is, if we think we can help you, we'll be sending you an email invite to join a workshop with me in the coming week or so. We haven't actually locked the date in yet, but we will do that shortly, and that's the next step.
Thanks, Paul. And as Bob said, my train is coming. You probably heard the horn. So we need to start wrapping up. I guess in summary, what I'll be saying is, look, for people who are interested in New Zealand, the demand for people moving here is high, but also both ways. So employers are desperate for people because the borders have been shut. We haven't been able to bring in the normal amount of people that we normally would. And so therefore it's created a shortage and in specific areas, in a lot of areas. So that's really good news if you're thinking of coming to New Zealand. The second thing is that the process is slower than it normally would be, but we're here to help you with that. So it does mean you have to be a little bit patient, but you know, it's a long time migrating, so it's worth putting in the yards now, so that you can live a life down here and enjoy the lifestyle that we all do. So I think it's 33 minutes now. That's enough of us, just as an initial start. So thank you very much for joining us here tonight, this afternoon, this morning, wherever you are, and we wish you all the best of luck in your move to New Zealand. Thanks. Bye.
See you, everyone. Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.